Hello and welcome to the Grow Landscapers 10-minute business tips series, a show that gives you bite-sized nuggets of wisdom in just 10 minutes. I'm Nick Ruddle and today's guest is Kim Sones from Sones Accountancy Services, who specialise in accountancy services specifically for landscapers. So how are you doing, Kim?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me on.
It's a pleasure, I think, to get some specific numbers, information on how to know your numbers. It's the most important thing in any business, but especially in a landscape business. If you don't know your numbers, then you could go bust very quickly. So, looking forward to hearing your words of wisdom. I'm going to stick this timer on, and when it goes, then I'll be asking you for your first tip. So, without further ado, what is your first tip?
So I'm sure it won't surprise you or your listeners to know that my three tips today are going to be financially based. And the two most important things to mention when it comes to kind of financials is profitability and cash flow. As we all know, cash flow is the lifeblood of the business, but without monitoring the profitability, then that in turn, if you're making a loss, can then negatively affect your cash flow. So with this in mind, my first tip is to regularly monitor and start to understand your management report. And the main one really being your profit and loss report. That's where you really need to get started. I do this for my business every single month. And I will talk you through how to do that in a minute. But for that, what you must do first is make sure that your bookkeeping is up to date and accurate, and done to a good standard. Because if you don't have the bookkeeping, which I like to call the financial foundations of your business, if that's not there, then your management reports are not going to be accurate. You're not going to be able to make those good business decisions based on the financials. And firstly, what you're going to need to get, if you haven't already, is an accounting system in place like Xero. And then some of our clients do the bookkeeping kind of in-house themselves. And they might have like their partner do it or their mum do it. And what we find that if they're not qualified bookkeepers, they're going to be recording transactions on a cash basis because they don't understand. They're not qualified bookkeepers. They don't understand how to use the accruals principle. And without getting too technical, the accruals principle needs to be in place for us to be able to have accurate management reports. And this is basically recording transactions on the original document date. So it'd be creating the sales invoices when that sale is due, and recording in the system the purchase invoices on that supplier invoice date. And then it's matching those cash transactions, so that payment in from the customer and payment out to the suppliers, to those original documents. And that essentially is the basis of the principle, but so much more goes into it. And without that principle in place, the management reports just aren't accurate. But once we have that in place, then what we can do is we can run the profit and loss report. And this is what I do every single month. And this is to learn how to read those reports and really understand what the story is telling you, how the business has got on. And what I do is I go into my accounting system once the bookkeeping is done for the month, and I pull off a profit and loss report for the previous month, and I also include the other previous months for that year and a total, so you've got a total year to date. And then I start looking at that report line by line, and I'm looking to see if there's any anomalies. So anything that's up or anything that's down on the previous months. And then what I actually do is, if there are, I then delve into that. So I'll go into Xero and I see what the figures are behind that number. So what has happened in that month? Has marketing increased £1,000 on the previous month? If so, why? And you can really remind yourself on what's gone on. And then you can start asking your questions like, well, has that extra marketing spend been favourable to my business? Is it kind of paying for itself? Is it doing the job it's supposed to do? And then you can start making decisions. Okay, you might give it a couple of months if it's like a new monthly thing that you're doing. Give it a certain time period to see if it's having its desired effect. And if it's not, then reduce it or stop it. So it's just learning to understand the numbers, see what they're telling you, understand the story, and understand how to read the numbers. And then you can make those kind of financial decisions and stay on
I
top of the
think we've got a
numbers.
bit of a
And also the
Okay.
other thing we do is we look at the profit and loss and we create some KPIs, so kind of goals to monitor and measure. So the three we like to do with our clients are sales growth. So that is looking at the growth of the sales, the turnover month on month. The next one is the gross profit margin. Now, this is an interesting metric because If the sales are growing, but the gross profit margin isn't, then that would be a red flag to me, and I'd be looking at the expenses, the direct expenses of the business, and seeing how we can be more efficient as the sales grow. Because if you're growing in sales, but your profit margin isn't going anywhere, then it's not really having the desired effect. And the last one is the net profit margin, and similar way of calculating it to the gross profit margin. So it's both of them are the profit as a percentage of the sales, but the net profit margin does grow. I find with a lot of businesses goes up as the business grows, because the overheads don't go up at the same rate.
Yeah.
They don't increase at the same rate as the business grows.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're kind of our three things that we like to measure, and that's how I do it on a monthly basis with my management reports.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. A lot of people shy away or scared of the financial aspect of the business, and they avoid it. And by doing so, you're going to be making mistakes, or definitely not going to be on top of it. It's like I always sort of see it as your scorecard. So if you don't keep score, let's say you play a game of golf, you've got one handicap, the person you're playing against has got another handicap. If you don't keep score, you really wouldn't know who's winning or losing. It's the same in business. I think having that monthly P&L kind of report, and understanding your year-to-date report and everything else within it, it doesn't have to be scary. As long as you know the general principles, at least it shows that you're keeping score in your business, and whether you're winning or losing in business, i.e. making a profit or not, or how much profit. So yeah, very, very good. Any more tips?
Yeah, and just one more thing on that one is that business owners don't need to be a numbers person
No.
to be looking at and learning how to understand these reports. They really don't need to be numbers people. They just need to learn how to understand the report. But yeah, on to my second tip. I think this is a big one for helping business owners to sleep at night, and that is creating a cash reserve for your business. And the general rule around this is to aim for kind of 3 months of operating expenses as a cash reserve. So you would need to add up your overheads, salaries, liabilities, basically anything you need to pay if your business was closed for the month. Work out what they would be for a month, and then obviously save 3 months worth of that. Now that's not achievable for everybody right now, but what you can slowly do as a business owner is build that pot over time. I'll be totally honest, like in my business, we certainly don't have that level of cash reserve. I actually had a quick look at my operating expenses this morning just to add them up for, because I've been talking about this today. And I actually have about 1.5 times my monthly operating expenses as a cash reserve. But what this really helps with, and what I see with my clients in the industry, the clients that don't have a cash reserve, they are scrabbling around for kind of like a VAT payment or stressing out at the month end paying their employees' salaries. Whereas the clients that have a cash reserve can, if they're waiting for a customer payment to come in, and maybe it's a bit delayed, sometimes happens, but they can dip into that cash reserve to pay their employees or pay the VAT or whatever it is their commitments that they would need to pay. They can dip into that cash reserve, and I really think it helps us as business owners sleep at night having that cash reserve. So you might not have that available right now, but if over time you can put bits away, and I would suggest having a separate bank account or accounts. So you can have a business savings account, or with these online bank accounts, you can create pots, very easily create different pots. I actually do that for my taxes, which we'll talk about
Yeah.
in my next tip.
We have 2 minutes left, by the way, just to give you a
Oh,
check.
really? We're going to whiz through this then. A quick, simple tip to help with cash flow is that just to make sure, because I do see this, it's so simple, but it just doesn't get prioritised. Business owners to send out their invoices and chase for the money and get that in the bank as quick as possible.
Yeah.
Okay, as we haven't got long, my third tip then
Go.
is to set aside money for your tax liabilities. So I think this is a big one, really. It's easy to think that your bank balance is bigger than what it is because your tax money hasn't been set aside. You think your cash flow is great and your bank balance is looking really healthy, but then when you come to pay your taxes, then you have a bit of a cash flow issue. So my advice would be to learn how to calculate your tax from your management reports and set that aside in the separate bank accounts, or ask the bookkeeper or accountant to calculate those estimates for you and set them aside.
Brilliant.
So at least then you have that in a
Yeah.
separate, completely separate
No
pot or bank
surprises.
account.
No
Yeah, no
surprises.
surprises. And then your cash flow is what it is.
Yeah.
You know, your bank balance is what it is, and it's available then to distribute to suppliers, employees whenever needed.
Yeah. Being in full control, peace of mind, I think is so important because, you get hit by a massive tax bill and you think, that often can be, your downfall, can't it, in business if you can't pay those and the
Absolutely.
inland
And
revenue shuts you down. So,
yeah, absolutely. And we actually offer our clients that do year-end tax and accounts with us a prior to year-end meeting to review all this, to review
yeah,
profitability,
get
to
ready,
estimate
get
their
prepared.
taxes. So at that point, they can then make a decision potentially to invest in equipment or pension or whatever to help them bring down that tax liability if they have one. And I
Very good.
think that
Very
really
good.
helps them to do some planning.
Absolutely. I'm hurrying you along because we're over our 10 minutes and I've still got two very, very quick questions to ask you. So you've got two very quick answers
Yes.
to give. Okay. So brilliant tips. Really appreciate that, Kim. Phenomenal. I mean, everyone needs to know that stuff and you gotta do it. So in your opinion, what could be done to attract more people to this lovely industry that you both help and work with?
Okay, so I think there's definitely some good work being done in this area. As a Bali member myself, I can see that initiatives by them, like Go Landscape, really good work being done.
Mm,
I personally think that creating more apprenticeship placements in the industry would really help bring people into the industry and also help with like future skilled labour, which we all know is a problem in the
mm,
industry.
mm,
Um, I have the conversation with clients, and some clients do take on apprenticeships, and other clients are a bit worried about taking on apprenticeships for the extra work that's involved. But I think that for all that extra, there certainly is extra work involved. I have taken apprentice on myself, but the upside is that it can really help your bottom line, like your profitability of your business. You've got an extra pair of hands on site that you can be charging out, help increase the profit of your business. So the trade-off is the extra work involved to help them, and it's also, creating a career for somebody. It helps with the greater good, really.
yeah. You can mold them into your way, and assuming they've got the right attitude, then you can have a really successful outcome. Good stuff. Right. So thank you for that one. Last question. What do you do personally as a business owner to help you keep growing and learning for your business?
Okay, so I see being a business owner as a lifelong learning journey. And I started off listening to audiobooks, podcasts, online courses. And now, a bit further along in my journey, I have a wonderful business coach in yourself that helps us to guide us and to level up as a business. And my business has definitely made strides since we've started working together. So thank you very much for your
Yeah,
help.
it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. It's all about taking action, and you definitely do that. And have a clear plan and a pathway to where you want to go. Setting that goal or those goals is so important. I know you've got some brilliant goals and uh, ambition, massive ambition for your business and your life as well. Good stuff. Thank you so much, Kim. That has been amazing. Jam packed in such a short space of time. It's probably the quickest you've ever had to explain all that kind of stuff ever. But this is what this podcast's all about. Just full of packed in wisdom and knowledge in very short, sharp bursts. So appreciate your time. Keep up the great work with your own business. Looking forward to helping you continue with that. And enjoy the rest of your day and rest of your week.
Thank you for having me.
Absolute pleasure. Cheers, Kim. Take care.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.